I think that we can start. Welcome to everyone. My name is Gianluca Salvatori and I'm Secretary General of Fondazione Italia Sociale. Thank you for being here attending this webinar that is part of a capacity building program that is organized by SEED, that is a consortium for one of the 6 projects supported by the European Commission to establish National Competence Centers for social innovation across the European Union. The capacity building online sessions have the goal to cover different topics that may support the understanding and development of social innovation ecosystems and the implementation of social innovation initiatives. In particular, this webinar is dedicated to the topic of social innovation in the framework of the Social Economy Action Plan that was launched by the European Commission 1 year ago, December 2021. In fact, the action plan includes the theme of social innovation, and in particular, the creation of an European Center of Competence for social innovation and national centers of competence. And so a question arises looking at the social economy action plan. And the question is, why is the topic of social innovation placed by the European Commission within an action plan that concerns primarily the social economy? What does it indicate? Does it mean that social economy organizations have a specific responsibility, a specific task to promote social innovation? This is the goal of our meeting today. It will be a short meeting, 1 hour, I promise you. And I wanted to introduce with some reflections on this question. Why the social innovation is framed within the social economy action plan by the European Commission. What does it mean? Which are the consequences? I will start in my introduction from a very basic fact that we are faced with the results, with the consequences, with the effects of 3 global crises that in less than 15 years have concern all our communities. The financial and economic crisis in 2008, the pandemic crisis just 2 years ago in 2020, and now the consequences of the Russian invasion of Ukraine this year. So what we have is a framework that have set in motion a kind of systemic transformation based on a double crisis of legitimacy. On one side, what we see is that corporate powers, market rules, are not suitable alone to manage the social complexity. The profit-oriented organizations look unable to take charge of the general interest. And in some cases, they have been a factor worsening the growing social inequality. So let's say that from one side, we have one of the main actors that have played a central role in the last 30, 40 years that is unable to face these 3 crises. On the other side, we have the state, the public authority, the public sector, that has been reinstated at center stage as the main authority capable of dealing with those global crises. we have seen in those 15 years a huge amount of public money invested in facing the crisis. We have been seeing the support by public institutions to measures in order to tackle with the issues resulting from the crisis. But the state reinstated at the center of the stage, at the center of the scene, is not the same public authority that we knew 40 or 50 years ago. It is a public authority that has lost the trust in the political system by the people, by the population. What we observed in these years has been a withdrawal from public life by a large majority of citizens. So we have a scenario where the logic that was a polarized, a binary logic hinging from one side on the action of the state and on the other side on the corporate powers doesn't work effectively, and instead emerges a vision that recognizes and expands the space for the intervention of civil society organizations. So that's the point. This, I mean, the pillar on which the Social Economy Action Plan is built by the European Commission is the idea that we need new models of cooperation. Models where different actors, public and private, profit and non-profit, bring their own specific competencies, their own specificities into the production of public value. We could say public good. So the point is that the responsibility to produce solutions to problems of general interest is no more belonging just to the exclusive competence of the public authority, and is more a matter of collaboration among a plurality of subjects. And those subjects are equally entitled to contribute to the framework of issues, to the framing of solutions. And this is exactly the space where social innovation must be framed, with this specific reference to the general interest. So it is undeniable that the concept of social innovation in these past years has suffered from some ambiguity. Sometimes it has seemed like nailing a pudding to the wall. Things were considered social innovations that turned out to be quite different. Just to give you some examples, we wove the praises of the sharing economy as an example of social innovation. And now we found ourselves with Airbnb, with fleets of scooters and car sharing run by multinational giants. So what we called social innovation was not exactly what we meant for. We magnified digital platforms as an instrument of social self-expression, an instrument for grassroots creativity. And we found ourselves now with Uber, with Netflix, with Amazon, that are exactly the contrary of self-expression and grassroots creativity. And one more example, we believed that thanks to social networks, citizens could be actor in the news production. We believed in citizen journalism. And we found ourselves today with the spread of fake news. So we had some problems in defining social innovation in these past years. And why? I think because we conceived social innovation in a very simplistic way, just as a problem of tools and of modes of operation. And we didn't consider the aspect of the motivations and of the subjects. In other terms, it's not enough to make an innovation social the way it is presented or the content it deals with. For a social innovation, it's crucial who, and not just what and how, who is promoting the social innovation itself. So who has the responsibility that structurally binds the social innovation to the general interest. So I'm concluding my introduction. I think that is, in my opinion, is that it's very important to have the social economy action plan approved and launched by the European Commission as the framework where to place the topic of social innovation. To me, social economy organizations are the naturally more vocal players in social innovation. Not all the players are equal. Not all of them have the same motivations. As the social economy places the pursuit of the general interest and the principle of collaboration over the pursuit of private interest, of exclusive interest of just one side, I think that social economy can be fundamental in the reconstruction of a public space that faces the crisis of our time, a crisis of democracies, crisis of the public institutions. And social economy as a goal, as a responsibility in addressing the feeling of social abandonment nourished by this gap between elite and people. So that's the point to me that gives an answer to the question why we find the social innovation as one of the action included in the plan that was launched by the European Commission, because that is the place. And those are the organizations with a special responsibilities in terms of carry on the development of social innovation activities. Well, this was my introductory remark. And we have some guests to discuss this connection between social innovation and the action plan. And I will give the floor now to Professor Mario Calderini from the, hi Mario, from the Politecnico of Milano.
Oh.
He is director of TIRESIA Research Center within the Politecnico, who is one of the partners of the SEED consortium. So Mario, it's up to you to express your opinion on this.
Thank you very much, Gianluca, and apologies for being a little bit late, but there was some connectivity problem. So, but I could hear you and your final comments, and I'll start from there, because of course I do believe in the transformative power of social economy. And it's a transformative power that will exert its effects, let's say, on double-sided. On the one side, I think one of the reasons why we need to invest in the social economy is to, let's say, think of a new generation of welfare policies. So there is the social policies side. And then there is a very important industrial policy side. And to cut a very long story short, I think that the huge potential for the social economy is that you're able today to design social policies and development policies, or even industrial policies, with a single coin, one single coin for two objectives. Let's start from the industrial point of view, and I think that, of course, along with the Social Economy Action Plan, that is a crucially important document that will exert a huge pressure on member states and national governments to implement the infrastructural innovations and reforms that are needed to get the social economy taking off. I think that also, of course, the explicit mention of the social and the proximity economy in the industrial strategy of the European Commission is equally important in this respect. Why do I think we need to put the social economy and different forms of social entrepreneurship at the very heart of a new idea of European economic development model? We have impressive data that are very much related and close to the political problem that you made reference to in your final remark, Gianluca, and that is the economics of knowledge, to which we attributed a lot of hopes for prosperity and equity and fair distribution of the dividends of growth policies, has been a disappointment. We have data from Juan Rosés, from Rodriguez Poses, saying that the heritage of the economics of knowledge is an increased level of inequality at territorial level in Europe. There are very few places that benefited by the so-called knowledge economy, namely investment in intangible, in innovation, in technologies, and many other places have been left behind. There are places in Europe, the ones that are left behind, where the only entrepreneurial network and even industrial network that we have is social entrepreneurship. And I think investing in technology transfer for social enterprises, investing in more managerial structuration, financial intensity, technological intensity in social entrepreneurship means to think of social entrepreneurship as a huge, diffused, distributed enterprise incubator and accelerators. If you take Italy, Gianluca, as an example, in Italy you have more or less 20,000 entrepreneurial organization within the third sector. Let's assume very prudentially that with clever technology transfer policies, helping social enterprises to become more financially intensive, managerially structured and everything, we have a 1% success rate. So 1 out of 100, we are able to get these social enterprises grow, become more innovative, technological and everything. It means 200 basically new enterprises per year. 200 new enterprises per year in Italy. All the university incubators and all the devices that we have used in the past 30 years in the knowledge economy would take probably 50 years to create 200 new companies. So I do think that social entrepreneurship and the extended networks of social entrepreneurship are actually the incubator and accelerator of new entrepreneurship that we need for the future. Second, it is very clear now that we have such a thing like the unintended consequences of innovation. If you allow me some self-criticism, in polytechnic schools, we have basically taught our students and the researchers in all the research labs to innovate in a world of abundant resources and infinite and very loose constraints. These are times of scarce resources and very tight constraints. And talking about these constraints, although we have been more or less aware of the constraints related to the resources of the planet, we still think today in the innovation world that inequalities are not a scarce resource, are something that we can leverage on basically as much as we want, which is not true. So we need a new model of innovation. I think that this new model innovation has to be learned in three places. And these three places are the nature, the third sector, and the south hemisphere of the world, because these are the three places that are used to innovate with scarce resources. And this is why I think I think that social economy is important for what I call the social cocooning. Social cocooning means that when technology and innovation are engraved in social entrepreneurship models, they lose their negative consequences, which are always there in innovation, and will allow us to innovate in a world in which inequalities do matter. And we need to take into account inequalities and the so-called endogenous crisis of innovation ex ante when we define our innovation model. So there is no innovation without social entrepreneurship, in my perspective. Finally, there is a matter of legitimation. Who is going to benefit of the social dividends of technological and industrial progress? We forgot about this, and we built places, urban regeneration plans, industrial regeneration plans, industrial strategic plans, in which we thought that more or less there was no redistribution problem. We thought that more or less wealth and opportunity will spill over in an equal and fair way on everybody. I think now we need to come to terms with the fact that there is a redistribution problem, and we need to take care of the redistribution problem, especially when opportunities come from innovation that we tend to consider good, always good. So I think that social innovation and social entrepreneurship, and in general social economy, will be the one device that we need to use to take care of the social dividends and make sure that the social dividends are equally shared by the communities, by people, by persons that are usually excluded, which is very important. So I think that the set of social economy action plan action that are foreseen in the social economy action plan are very important, of course, and this is the role of SEED, and this is the role of the capacity building exercise that we are trying to perform all together. It will need a lot of capacity building in the public administration and even in policy, in policymaker, because these are evoluted policies. These are complex policies that involve altogether the reform of the public administration, the reform of public procurement, a new metrics, new rules of accountability, and many other things. So we will need a lot of capacity building, and of course this is what we were working for. As the last remark, I think that there is one duty that we have, I think we that are involved in the social economy and that have been pushing for putting the social economy at the center of the stage. I think we should stop what I consider being a useless discussion on the nature of social enterprises and what is meant by social enterprise, whether they are inside or outside or on the border of the third sector. I think that we need a more proactive definition that takes into consideration different combinations and balances of purpose and profit, of social purpose and profit, and that we need to be brave enough to abandon any kind of formal definition and turn to substantial definition. Because if we do want social enterprises at the very center of a new European development model, we do need to be very flexible in the definition. That does not automatically mean losing the identity of social enterprises. It's not that. I think that impact measurement and governance models can be innovated in order to preserve on a substantial ground the identity of social enterprises, and we need to get rid of the constraints of formal definitions. These are my introductory reflections.
Thank you. Thank you, Mario. Very clear answer to the question, and your observations really underline the link between social economy and social innovation. I do share many of your comments, especially this last one about the useless definition of a legal framework that is binding 27 countries with different backgrounds and histories
and rules and yes.
And yeah, I find the choice of the European Commission to define a perimeter, and within this perimeter to include different kind of organizations with the same principles but different legal frameworks and different organizational forms is very clever, and I think is the right decision. But
yeah.
I don't want to I mean, we have another guest, another partner of the SID project, a very active partner, Vasilios Bellis, who is from the development agency of Karditsa in Greece. And I wanted to hear from you. Before giving you the floor, I just wanted to say that we would like to leave the last 10 minutes for questions and answers. Please use the chat to write your comments or questions, and we'll use the last 10 minutes to answer. Thank you. Up to you, Vasilios.
Thank you, Mr. Gianluca. And I will begin presenting some remarks and opinions about the issue we are discussing, mentioning again the three waves, the three crises we faced during the last 12 years. And I will bring some images from the first crisis in Greece. In our prefecture, we are working. There were 18 bank departments. The 14 of them closed down. So imagine what would be the impact of this destruction of the banking system in our area. Fortunately, some years ago, the local authorities and the local society decided to set up a new instrument, a local credit cooperative. And it happened on 1994, and after some years, after 4 years, it was transformed into the local cooperative bank. This local cooperative bank played a very, very significant role in protecting the local society from the disaster faced during this crisis. So when bank office or a bank department shut down their offices, the cooperative bank opened a new one. So during this crisis, the cooperative bank doubled the loans and doubled also the deposits. So it played a very, very significant role in the resilience of our local society during this crisis. and it was protected the local productive system and the local small medium enterprises. So it was proven that the crisis played a role into the strengthening of this local tool created some years ago. It was proven that the social economy played a very significant role during difficult moments of the local society. And especially, it was proven that social innovation was born in the frame of social economy, and this social innovation played a very significant role in a moment of crisis. After this crisis, other crises came, like the pandemic, or like the crisis we face now with the war and the energy instability, let's say. Some years ago, in 2010, local authorities, development agencies supported the establishment of an energy cooperative that is playing a very significant role in this transition era of the energy, exploiting the local biomass, producing pellets and so on. And it is playing a very significant role in the electricity production, in power production, and so on. I mention all of these issues in order to say that the social innovation is flourishing in the frame of social economy, and of course there is the support of some organizations which offer services to local citizens who would like to develop collective initiatives. So it is proven that the Social Economy Action Plan is valuable, is very significant, because it stresses the three pillars, the three prerequisites, let's say, for the development of social economy and social innovation. The creating of a right framework for social economy, the necessity to open opportunities for the social economy entities development, and the enhancing of recognition of social economy and its potential to offer solutions. I would like to stop here my small presentation. It was full of examples, of local examples relating to local experiences, and I'm at your disposal in order to answer any question. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you to you, Vasilis. Unfortunately, the third guest, Eva Cantel, was not able to attend this webinar. She's traveling probably from South America, where her movement celebrated a big event last week. So I will introduce a second round of questions, waiting for your questions from the audience. And the second my second question is about what will happen next. What I mean, we know that the action plan is an engagement made by the European Commission. So they are deciding about their policies, their measures, their resources. It's not just a political address, it's something more, because it's also defining rules for attributing financial resources. For instance, in EU Invest or the family of instruments under the hat of EU Invest, or for the cohesion funds that will be transferred to the national states. So the Commission has done a great job, but now the next step will be the consequence of this choice of having an action plan within the national states. What will happen is that next June, the EU Commission will propose a recommendation to the European Council, so to the states, to the member states. Commissioner Schmid has repeated often in these weeks that the Commission want to see the engagement by the national states in approving national action plan. So this is what they are looking for, an engagement that is spread across all the European Union. So the question is, when the action plan will become a national policy, which kind of measures, which kind of applications, concrete applications, do you think are more urgent? Which kind of political consequences you would like to see in your own country, so in Italy, in Greece? But I think that, I mean, this kind of comment can be done for all the member states. That's the point. And how can we make pressure on our national authorities in order to adopt such a national action plan? So, big question. Mario.
Yeah, huge question. Well, but probably the most crucial one. First of all, I'll go back to my final remark. And yes, I agree with you, Gianluca, that the Commission made a wonderful job, did a wonderful job in keeping the definition very broad. The risk in the implementation in June, after June, is that you have situations in member states, like in Italy, for example, where for the simple fact that social enterprise has a literal translation into impresa sociale, for example, that has a clear reference in the Italian law system, everything collapses in a very, very narrow and miserable notion of social enterprises. So I think the first thing is I do hope that with the recommendation comes a very clear political statement related to what we just discussed, namely that social enterprises is whatever puts whatever organization that puts social purpose before profit. Second, of course, at a systemic level, it will be very difficult because you have very asymmetric, a very asymmetric situation in terms of political maturity. For example, we all have seen France leading the way in the last 12 months with their presidency and everything, and other countries where the maturity of the political concept is lagging behind. So it will be a hard job for the Commission to bring everybody in a fairly aligned political agenda. I think, and I'm not saying that because this is one of the core topics of our competence center, that competence building in the public administration will need massive investments, right? And it is, when I say it's not just education, it's exactly cultural transition, because the notion itself of social entrepreneurship and social economy and all the instruments that are related to the notion of social economy are basically poorly understood. And still, when the typical reaction when you talk to policymakers or even civil servants is that you try to start your discourse about social economy, and they reply talking about charities. And it is, of course, a sort of cultural transition that will be very difficult to implement. I think that in very many European member states, a reform of accounting rule, or more than a reform of the public accounting rules, I would say a more courageous interpretation of accounting rules. Because you have countries, take Italy for example, in which public procurement rules are actually more powerful and wider than their simple interpretation. So what we will need is to bring auditors and control bodies on board and get them to understand that delivering social value is equivalent and it has the same dignity of cash and coins and finance. I would put this argument exactly in terms of dignity. We need to take, we need to have strong metric infrastructure for social impact measurement that are not only strong in terms of ability to measure, but are strong in terms of governance, namely that are delivered by independent third parties, so that the social impact and the value that is delivered by social enterprise, this is considered at the same dignity of finance by public administration. This, for example, will allow many municipalities all around Europe to use real estate assets that they do own that are in their books at disproportionate values that would prevent any kind of initiative from social enterprises. And the important thing that has to be done is to make this value proportionate, reducing the financial expectations and increasing the so-called outcome payment. But the outcome payment has to be given equal dignity, not just in terms. I'm not talking about equivalent values. I'm not talking about monetization. I think the social impact has to be a currency, an alternative currency in public administration. And in order to do so, I think the question is dignity and trusted and sound measurement infrastructures. I think this is important. The other is, of course, political culture, and I think that one target of dissemination has to be the big lobbying institutions and industry association and all this stuff. I would like that any industrial policy initiative would include the social economy and social enterprises in the perimeter. And because I think that what we need to do is to have cross-cutting policies that encompass industrial policies, financial policies, credit policies. It's a really systemic action, and it has to be taken at the very top of the government in order to make it cross-sectoral. The worst thing that can happen is that the social economy is relegated in one single ministry. And even worse tragedy is that the social economy is given to the ministries that were traditionally in social policies, like the welfare ministry or whatever, because we don't need segmentation. We need integration and cross-cutting policies.
Thank you, Mario. Yeah, you are right. And in effect, in other countries, the competence on social economy is not within the labor ministry, but for instance, in France, is directly under the presidency. And that's a big difference in terms of nature and concept of the social economy. So, Vasilis, what do you think about the Greek national plan?
Yes, I think that it is a necessity, and I think that it must follow the three pillars, the three main pillars defined by the social economy action plan made by the European Council. I think that in Greece, the main problem is that we have a very, very strong fragmentation, segmentation of the social economy. There are many ministries active in legislation production, and this creates segmentation of the social economy bodies, and it causes barriers to their cooperation, and especially to the establishment of local ecosystems which are necessary in order to plan and design the social innovation. I think that social innovation is something which needs more stakeholders, more participants. It is not possible to have social innovation by one player. So we need the support of local ecosystems, and it is impossible to succeed because of the fragmentation of the legislation. I agree with Mr. Calderini that we need more cross-sectoral policies, and the frameworks which will permit the organizations of different categories of organizations acting, social economy organizations which acting in different sectors, to cooperate among them. This is the first. The second is that the second pillar of social economy action plan is to open opportunities for local for social economy organizations to be developed. So we need organizations, specialized organizations, and of course resources for capacity building, to offer technical support, to offer hosting, especially during the first phases of establishing a collective initiative. So we need accelerators, we need incubators in local level or in sectoral level, but aiming at cross-sectoral policies, not targeted or aiming at specialized sectors. And the third pillar of social economy action plan is the enhancement of recognition of social economy. I think that the social economy, because of its fragmentation, is not strong in the eyes of a citizen, because according to the ministry promoting the social economy, only small parts of social economy are promoted. For example, the Minister of Agriculture promotes only the agriculture cooperatives, or the Ministry of Energy and Environment promotes only the energy communities, and so on. It is not useful policy for the promotion of social economy and social innovation, because it eliminates the possibilities and the opportunities of organizations to cooperate, to plan all together a concrete plan towards social innovation. This is my opinion, and I think that the Social Economy Action Plan is a very powerful tool in the hands of national governments in order to plan their national plans.
Thank you, Vasily. Well, we are almost at the end of our meeting. I don't see questions in the chat. There is a comment by Marco Traversi underlying the misalignment between the EU definition, or I would say not definition, of social economy and the national one in Italy. There is a big difference in terms of having a broad or a narrow concept of social economy. And this is exactly a critical point for a national action plan, because if it targets just social policies, as was said by Mario before, it will not correspond to the spirit and to the content of the action plan. Social economy is not just about social policies, it's much broader in terms of areas and domains of intervention. If I can add a last point from my point of view, is that the ecosystem Vasily was mentioning is basically important because it states a principle, the principle that all the subjects, all the actors included in an ecosystem are on the same foot, they have the same responsibility. We are coming from a long tradition of relationship between the public administration and the civil society organizations that was based on a totally different principle. It was the principle of a client-provider scheme, where the public administration was asking for services and the civil society organizations, the social economic organizations, were providing those services in a commercial way. We need to enter into a different scenario where the relationship is based on collaborative principle. And this means that all the subjects, all the actors are placed on the same level. There is a consequence of this. And the consequence is that we have to find alternative mechanisms different from the traditional proposals and tenders that were based on trading and commercial principles. What we need is a mechanism based on trust and on sharing goals. And this is something that in Italy we are learning now. We had a major reform of the third sector, introducing a principle that is still a principle, not easily translated into practice. And the principle is the shared administration. So all subjects belonging to an ecosystem have equal responsibility in producing a public good. And it means that they have to collaborate and not to command or order one to the other. Probably in the future national plan in Italy, we will have some discussion about how to introduce shared administration within the scheme of social economy and social innovation. Will be interesting to see how the public administration will react, because it's true in Italy, but I presume also in other countries, public administration is lagging behind, is not yet supporting this idea of sharing the responsibility with civil society organizations. And on this domain, I think that the European Commission could could do something more. I mean, if there is something lacking, missing in the action plan, is exactly this idea of sharing the responsibility in producing public goods. The logic is still the logic of competition based on tenders, based on procurement, based on state aid rules. And I think that all this should be reconsidered if we want to unleash the potential of social economy in terms of participating in creating new conditions for the public good. Well, it's 1 o'clock. I don't see any other question in the chat, so I would like to thank Mario Calderini, thank Vassili Vellis, thank our co-partners in the SEED project. This is just one appointment in a row of different, I don't remember, 5 or 6 different webinars. So I invite the audience to follow also the other webinars that will focus on different aspects of this interesting argument of translating social innovation in the new framework, in the new context we are living in. Thank you very much, and see you next time. Bye bye.
Ciao, grazie mille. Ciao,
Ciao,
bye.
ciao Mario.
Ciao.
Ciao Vassili.
Bye.
Ciao.
Bye.